Maestro, Giordano Bellincampi. I have to tell you, I kind of feel like now, like that journalist that got the interview with the prime minister that like no one else gets.
Yeah.
Like at any moment now, your security is going to come in and like whisk you away from me.
Oh, no. I always enjoy talking to you, Steve. You know that.
Thank you, sir. So I wanted to have a conversation with you that I seem to have with you pretty much once a year, and it's always very interesting to me. So I just thought it would be cool to get to have it with video cameras watching so others could hear it. Because when we do the opera in concert, opera is so dense. There's so many players, there's so many singers, there's so much happening on a scale that's just not what we're used to. And I'm always blown away by the fact that it's up there, you know? So I just wanted to talk to you about like how you get to this position. You know, it's an extraordinary amount of preparation that's needed to stand up at the first rehearsal and do this. Like what, you know, from the first time that you even heard that Korngold wrote this opera, how did you get to this point?
Yeah, so of course you're completely right. Opera is practically impossible. I mean, it's impossible to succeed 100% in every corner. This is the wonderful thing about opera. It is this thing where the music, the acting, the singing, the lights, everything needs to blend. So it is very complicated, but it's also super strong. It's a very, very strong message. And this is the way I approach it when I study a score. Yeah. So for instance, an opera like this, which has such an intense and important story about humanity, about how we are as people, how we deal with love, with grief, with temptations, with ourselves, basically with ourselves as humans. So the first thing is the text, really, really going deep into the text, then trying to understand the music, as we always do in every score, which is form-wise. You know, you try to find out how are the scenes and which tonalities are we in and how is it built, like we do with every other thing, and then narrowing in to the single phrase. And yes, it is an enormous work. You are right. It takes with an opera like this, for me, it takes several years. Literally, I started studying this opera 15 years ago, and this is the first time I'm going to conduct it. Wow. So, and I have taken quite long gaps of time the last couple of years, where I have focused only on studying this particular opera, while I've also been doing other stuff. But then I've taken 1 or 2 weeks where I've only been studying this, because it needs to be digested. As you say, when I'm in front of the orchestra for the first rehearsal, this is the end of the process for me. I mean, in order to be there, the music somehow needs to be so much inside of me and the text that I can somehow not panic when I hear that the ship is not sailing in the completely right direction.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the scores here.
Yeah.
Each one is for an act.
Yes.
I mean,
so this is the tote Stadt. Yeah. And I have to admit, I also had to photograph it up a little bit because, you know, with age, I need slightly bigger notes, because so many instruments are playing at the same time. So very often the score is completely full already.
Yeah. You know, I think something that some people may not realize right away is, you know, for instance, a month or so ago, we did a Mozart opera.
Yeah.
And when you do a Mozart opera, it's totally different because you have numbers, you know. Yeah. You play number 1, and number 1 starts in a tempo and it usually ends in the same
Hopefully.
tempo.
Yeah.
And you can, but you know, you start it and it rocks along, and then you move to number 2, and it's in these like nice little rehearsable and understandable songs, really.
Yes.
But Die Tote Stadt is not.
It's complete. It's like the Puccini operas. Basically, of course, it is linked to the Richard Strauss tradition, but also to the Puccini tradition. So it is very much like that, where you're doing something, and the next corner there's a new tempo, there's a new atmosphere, because it's also cinematic. Things happen in real time. Yeah. What happens with Mozart is that you have the recitativi, you know, where they're talking with the cembalo, right. And that's where there's some action, and then it's like Mozart zooms in on a specific feeling or a specific mood, and then you have a 5-minute aria about that particular mood. Yeah. And that's beautiful. It's one way of making theater. Yeah. There's action all the time. Yeah. So my job is as conductor to show the direction of what we are in right now, and at the moment I've started that, I have to start thinking about what is coming next.
Right.
how do I make the transition to the next thing? Either completely organic, where it's natural that we go into that new mood, or sometimes very abrupt. If something really dramatic happens, keep that atmosphere, and then boom, something new happens.
Yeah.
This is how it is with this, and then we build it rehearsing the singers with the piano, rehearsing the orchestra alone. We put it together where the singers sit down and sing with the orchestra without movements, and then they start with the movements, and then we have the lights, and then finally we can perform.
I mean, I think one of the things that always strikes me about opera is, we all watch so much film nowadays, and the thing is, opera really is that thing that brings together pretty much every art form at one time. The visual arts, the vocal performance, the orchestra, the staging, everything. But the thing is, when you watch a film, when they're making a film, they have the opportunity to go back and do it again.
Yes.
If it doesn't quite work out, plan it out, do it over a long period of time.
Yes.
This is a 2.5-hour film that doesn't get to stop.
Yeah.
We of course we have intervals between the acts, but that's the thing with something like this. Once it starts, everything has to go right.
Yeah.
Until it stops, which is just takes a level of preparation.
Yes, it is, but it also gives an incredible intensity. It gives an intensity for everyone in the room who's attending an opera, because you can sense that intensive feeling, that tension, which is both like we want to do it, but it's also an emotional tension where everyone really is passionate about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And this is what makes an evening at the opera always special.
Yeah.
It can be wonderful nights where everything is going well. It can be nights where something might not go absolutely perfect, but still there are moments where you sense that this is really, really a strong event, and you want to be there again.
Yeah.
So but as when we're talking about the tote Stadt, there's no doubt that this kind of style, like Puccini's, especially the last operas, they are extremely close to where we had ended when we had cinema with sound. Of course, they knew about silent films, but then when we finally had cinema with the sound, it is very much that world. And I'm sure that if Korngold, he did of course a lot of film music. He's kind of the father of the modern film music. But if he could, he would have made a film opera. I'm sure, kind of.
Well, and we just did the Seahawk a couple of months ago, which was one of his scores. Which was great.
Captain Blood and Robin Hood, fantastic scores. Yeah.
And to zero in on a specific aspect of this, I know for me, being a timpanist, I always feel responsible for knowing where the time changes happen and making sure that I'm on top of those things. And what makes this opera a challenge is that it feels like every bar is a new tempo, or we're pushing or we're pulling.
Yes.
And I know for me, like you've said, something like that, you can't just really read it. Like, you do have to, for me, I have to study it and listen to it, and at first it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then on the second day it makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
And then on the third day it makes more, and then I take a few days off, and then it makes, and like you said, it really is, it's like, there's something about, it just needs to bake into your system that like, no, that's how that rhythm should sound.
Yeah. And this is why even if we're performing La Bohème, which we have played many times, still you need days in order to do it. Yeah. So it's better to have the rehearsal a little bit spread rather than doing everything. Normally when we play a Brahms symphony, we can do that in 3 days without no problem. But here we need to digest the way that we structure it. So that's normal.
Which, for anyone that doesn't know of our rehearsal schedule for this week, we're sitting here on Thursday afternoon. We've just rehearsed once on Tuesday, twice on Wednesday, once on Thursday, and now we, the musicians, are going to have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and then come back for rehearsals on Monday, leading to a then Saturday performance.
Yes.
Though, which brings me, I kind of want to talk to you about your schedule, because yesterday we had a rehearsal from 10 to 12:30 and 1:30 to 4, and I felt like a zombie afterwards. Like, my brain was just shot, and I came to talk to you, and you said, "I'm sorry, I have to leave." because I'm going to was it a staging rehearsal with the
No,
singers?
it was piano rehearsal with
Piano rehearsal.
with singers. Yeah, 4:30. Yeah.
So, and how long was that rehearsal?
Well, we were quick yesterday until 7 or something.
Okay, so, and
that's fine.
And you don't, the downbeat's at 10 o'clock in the morning, but you don't arrive at 10. You're here at
Yes,
like.
I'm bummed. But
Yeah.
Again, I'm also, I have to say, yesterday evening I also enjoyed a cup of soup and a glass of red wine and
Nice.
fell asleep early. That's how it is. But again, because I've been preparing for this for a long time, of course I spend a lot of energy on this, but the impressions are not as strong for me as they are for players who, of course, you as more than anyone else, I suppose, are super well prepared when you arrive at the first rehearsal. But still, it's relatively new.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of months you have had the part.
Yeah.
It's not 10 years.
Yes.
So it takes, for me, I can digest it a little bit faster. But it is tough days. And I have to say, I think we spoke about it yesterday. If you grow up in an opera house, like I have done, the basic, if you work in an opera house, you start rehearsing in the morning, you have maybe piano rehearsals in the afternoon, you have a performance in the evening of another opera, and next day it's the same,
Yeah.
So you rehearse Don Giovanni in the morning, you have a piano rehearsal of Così fan tutte in the afternoon, and then you conduct Tosca in the evening, and then you do something else the next day. So it's a way of getting that repertoire into your blood, but also getting the ability of switching between things.
Yeah.
And that's why until 50, 60 years ago, basically no conductor would step up in front of a symphony orchestra without having done 10, 15 years of opera conducting first. Because you get to know a lot about how to cope with complicated situations.
Yeah. And I imagine the time management of
Yeah.
in this opera, you can't dig into details
No,
because you just don't have time.
No, and apart from the time, it's also this thing about trust, because this opera is wonderful. It's actually super organic. It goes by itself. It's also extremely complicated if you start opening all the boxes. So it's about opening the right boxes and saying, okay, this needs to be really soft. This transition is difficult. But if you start working in depth about 8 bars where all the strings are going like this in between each other in different rhythms, you might solve those 8 bars, but then every player for the rest of the 2 hours, they will be listening, oh, I'm not together with this, I'm not together with this, and then they start worrying. And if they start worrying, it's impossible.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a very fine balance.
Yeah. Well, Maestro, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For sitting down with me.
Thank you.
And if anyone hasn't bought their tickets yet, you can buy tickets for Die Tote Stadt, July 8th, 7 p.m. at apo.co.nz. Thank you, Maestro.
Thank you.